So welcome everybody to the second hour of Mind Shifters Radio, and today is Thursday, November the 30th, 2023. And our call-in number is 563-999-3581, and press 1, and that puts you into queue to talk to us. Puts a little hand up, and I know that you want to talk, not just listen, and we would welcome your questions and comments, because it makes it your show. And we are here to support you. You know, the show is not about us doing a monologue. We pass on the information we have, and we hope you take the tools and use them, put them to work in your life. We, often say, don't believe a word we say, but if you take the tools and use them, you'll see that it works. And we welcome you as we're moving into December. Holidays coming up quickly. Excuse me. And we're here to support you. A lot of times during the holidays, it's when a lot of people feel the most stress. Yeah, I got a tickle in my Mike, I'm going to turn it over to you so I can take a drink of water.
Okay, I'll take it. Thank you, dear heart, and welcome everybody. Delighted that you're here. Then we get to move forward one more time with this intriguing conversation about first century Aramaic forgiveness and all of the corollary materials that go with it, from what you eat to how you think to what you do with your physiology to what you do with the way you drink water. We're going to cover the whole gamut. In fact, if you look at that word that the churches have co-opted and they call it holy, you'd think it had something to do with being pious and being down on your knees with your hands folded. But actually, it has to do with understanding the whole energy system in which you live, move, and have your being, and how to function out of that energy system. Now, most of the world functions out of perception. And so perception brings questions that are irrelevant to what needs to be done, but keep us off track, keep us in another arena other than the one that we need to be working in. And so the reason we've been engaging, or we've engaged this conversation 5 days a week, at least an hour a day, for the last 12 years, is to create the space for a different conversation, to create the space for a different way of thinking, a different set of words. By the way, if anyone happens to know Robert Tennyson Stevenson, he's someone that I met about 43 or 44 years ago up in Michigan when I was traveling and teaching up there. And he just passed yesterday, I guess it was, or a couple of days ago. I just heard about it. And so if anybody knew Robert, he was an amazing gentleman who worked with, he did some of the forgiveness work way back when he had a center actually in Michigan, and I spoke there several times. And so he did some of this work, but he really picked up on and went with words. So he was a real advocate for conscious language, and did some really great work. So just invite everybody to hold the space for Robert and his family as he moves on to the next level of his experience as an eternal being, and we hold the space for him. Robert, we appreciate the being that you are, the contributions you made to our world, to our society, and we extend our love in your direction. And beyond that, we want to get to conscious language. We want to look at, there's a principle that we talk about in our Laws of Living course called regulatory speech. And regulatory speech, we haven't talked about that for a while in the class. We actually will sometimes refer to it as regulatory peaches in honor of a little guy who back 20 years ago was at Heartland with his mom. He was about 3. His name was Orion. And he was in a class with his mom on Laws of Living. And we spend quite a bit of time talking about regulatory speech. Ryan was about 3, and he would lay on the blanket and sleep beside his mom during the class. She had a blanket on the floor for him. And one day we finished class, and someone went into the kitchen. It was peach season, and had gone in and brought out a big clear crystal bowl of peaches for a snack. And little Ryan, rubbing his eyes, just awakening as people are starting to move around for the intermission, looks up and sees those peaches on the food bar, and in a voice, of course, plenty loud enough for everybody to hear, but was a whisper to his mom. He says, "Mom, are those regulatory peaches?" So, in honor of him, we still occasionally will call it regulatory peach or peaches. But regulatory speech literally is the energetic pattern with which is a reflection of your mind energy, of your thoughts, and which organizes your physiology, literally, on a cellular level. Do some research on cymatics. Go to YouTube University and type in the word cymatics and look at some of those videos and watch what sound does to structure. And then realize that literally the frequencies you engage in with your voice are the sounds that organize and either bring ease and wholeness and well-being to your physiology or create disturbance and destruction within your physiology. Something to be aware of. So regulatory speech organizes the way you feel, sets up the way you feel. The speech you use resonates. If we go to the opening words in the book of John, we're told by the Greeks that those words are, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word became flesh. And they equate the word, their word, as being Yeshua. And it's totally, completely false in the original Aramaic. In fact, what it says is, in the beginning was the mind energy. Or another proper translation for the word there is, in the beginning was the willed action. And the mind energy, or the willed action, became flesh. Now, if we come 2,000 years forward into the cell biologist laboratory with Bruce Lipton, you can look it up and he'll share with you what happens when you think a thought, when you engage in mind energy. And what he's shown as a cell biologist in the laboratory is that thought appears in your physiology as a molecule, a neuropeptide. And that neuropeptide circulates around in your structure until it finds a cell with a receptor site that matches, lands on that cell, and when it lands, if you were inside of the cell watching the inlet for that particular antenna, literal receptor site, what you would see coming into the cell would be what we would call chemistry. Now, of course, it's all energy, but that's how we would delineate it with our minds. Mind energy literally becoming flesh, speech becoming physiology. Regulatory speech sets it up and organizes it all, and also sets in motion frequencies that attract to us what ends up happening in our worlds. And it's a really powerful statement. Creatorship really speaks to you as and informs you of the ability you have to create. And so what we engage in the way of speech is what literally ultimately produces or destroys, supports, or weakens physiology. So in the beginning was the mind energy became flesh. And today we have come so far away as humans from truth. The use of language, if you look at the meanings of so many words in Aramaic that are much closer to our root energetic patterns. In fact, it's interesting that every language on the planet, except for one, is based in the minds of men. One language is rooted in and based in the physics of the world. That language is Aramaic. If you were to be able to do a 3D shadow of the table of the elements, of each of the elements, what you would find is that the Aramaic alphabet is a 3D shadow of the atomic elements in the periodic table of the elements. So it's based in the actual world of physics, physiology. Now, you could say, which came first, the chicken or the egg? Did the element come first or did the word come first? Well, somebody tells us that the word came first, which, again, it isn't word, but mind energy. Words reflect mind energy. If you take the word that describes a human life, properly understood, that word would be love. Now, you'll notice how far away are we from using the word love to describe human life? A long, long ways. The word love is often used to describe self-sacrifice. Oh, I'll put my head on the chopping block, go ahead and cut it off, and that will prove that I love you. I love you so much I would die for you. Would you live for me instead, please? Really, we don't need to be dying for each other. If you've ever held a newborn child and you tap into the energy of that newborn, the descriptor that you'll use, at least I say this from the experience of Jeanie and I presenting this question to tens of thousands of people over the years, and if you describe the energy of the newborn, you'll find that it is love. And if you tap into the love that that newborn is, and I ask you the question, is the newborn loving you? Or is the newborn love? You're going to have to say that, no, the newborn is not loving me, the newborn is love. It is the fact of human existence, and what we're looking to do with this work is restore to every mind, heart, and being on the planet the fact of human existence. Not sexual athletics, not self-sacrifice, not being willing to be beat up and give yourself away for your love, but rather the fact that the presence of your essential nature in your physiology is the presence of love. Now, if you come from a culture and a family system that from day one has described you only in those terms and supported that in you, then you have a proper language. If that's not where you've come from, then your language is garbage relative to the language it takes to support human life. You know, you just listen, turn on the TV. You know, we have a little test you can run to determine whether or not that's true and how brainwashed we are by the world. I'm going to invite you to do this test. Take out an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, draw a 1-inch margin, or there probably is already a margin down the left-hand side. It's about 1 inch. And at the top of that margin, put the word love. And then, on the top of the other side of the line, put the words hostility and fear. Turn on your TV. And don't spend any more than a max of 3 minutes on any station. Just flip around from station to station. So when you arrive, you land on a station, you start listening. And every time that you hear a word that's actually based in that presence of human life, truly the presence of active love, put a check mark on the left side of the line, that little 1-inch column over on the left. And every time you hear a word based in hostility or fear, put a check mark on the right side of the line, that, you know, what is it, 8.5, so 7.5-inch space on the right-hand side of the line. And I guarantee you'll fill every square inch of the right-hand side of the page, 7.5 by 11, long before you'll fill the left-hand 1-inch column by 11 inches. That's the brainwash of the world. We've been brainwashed. And one of the reasons for carrying on this conversation for the last 12 years, or why we're committed to that, is because we want to create a space where people have the opportunity to engage in language reflecting love, and to have the tools with which to remove from the structure the experiences that are not based in human life, the experience based in hostility and fear. You remember in the ancient scriptures they said, do not be molded by the world or you will end up moldy. Well, that's not exactly the way they said it, but in essence, that's the bottom line. If you allow the energetic patterns of hostility or fear that run most of the cultures of the world, I mean, listen to the violence, the viciousness, the insanity that's going on in our culture. Look at the divisions, and notice the divisions are all based in words, producing thoughts, producing realities of conflict. The work of forgiveness is to go in and to remove those conflicting energies, restore the energetic patterns that will support physiologically in you functioning as the active presence of love in your own body-mind unit. And so, why a 12-year conversation? Because it takes that kind of time and more to shift out of the brainwashed hostility and fear-based thought systems that are embedded in us as a result of generations and generations and generations of hostility and fear. So we're looking to restore the language based in experiencing ourselves, not the mamby-pamby world's definition of love, sexual athletics, whatever, but rather just to restore the experience of yourself as the presence of love. And it takes a changing of the whole regulatory speech system to do that. People hear about forgiveness. Oh, I can let go of all the hostility and fear in my life. Great, I love that idea. I got $5 in 5 minutes. Tell me everything you know. Well, there's nothing I can tell you for $5 in 5 minutes that's going to change the massive multi-generational database in your mind called your regulatory speech system. Not going to happen. It's going to take an ongoing, consistent, persistent effort and work, consciously, purposely functioning as, speaking out of the presence of love, and then recognizing when stored within your genes or within your memory bank there is hostility or fear, that you confront that hostility or fear and you forgive it. Forgiveness is one of the words that's been shattered by our culture. In its origins, the word forgive describes a tool with which you go inside your own mind and remove the underlying speech, the underlying energetic dynamics of hostility and fear to free yourself from those dynamics. And the only way you get free of those dynamics is to do the work. Now, everybody wants it done yesterday. You'll remember once again in those ancient scriptures they said, you can't storm the gates. You can't go in base and take all the baggage of generations and generations and generations of suffering and pain and trauma and hatred and vengeance and sadness and grief. You can't. You just can't walk away with that. So this body of work is about shifting your whole energy system and empowering you or creating the support for you to be able to go inside yourself and from a space of experiencing yourself as conscious, active, present love, changing every energetic pattern in your mind that's not based in love. That's the work we're here to do. So that's basically the direction we want to go, and I wonder, before I go on with anything else, we've got a question from the app, but I wonder if anyone has any thoughts or questions about that block of information. Does that make sense for everybody? And does it bring anything up for you?
You have a hand up.
Great. Let's say hello.
Okay, it is Susan 610. You're on the air. Hi.
Welcome, dear heart.
Well, you kept going, Michael, and so I wrote down 5 things that you triggered.
Oh, go for it. All right. Hey, I'm doing my job today.
Well, you reminded us, you said this many times. If you've been on the radio show at all, you hear the story about in the beginning was the word. No, it wasn't the word. It was the mind energy. And I told my support group what you had said about that and where it came from. And my genius, amazing old guy who lives in our group said, first of all, the vibration of God, the presence of God is the 5th dimension. Now, I can't make anything of that, and I'm going to keep going because he also said, in the beginning was the song. Now, I love that idea, but I can't do anything with it. But this is the way this guy thinks. And he's single, he lives by himself in subsidized housing because he has very little material stuff. He never cared that much about those things.
Right.
But, so he said those 2 things, and when I told him the Aramaic in the beginning was the mind energy, he was completely flummoxed and didn't know what to do with that. So my comment is only that he has evidently found his way to the meaning of things without using words that I have gotten familiar with. So anyway, what do you think of that, the 5th dimension? He's a scientist. So he's a physicist.
Right.
Go ahead.
I personally don't have the brain cells for how the 5th dimension would operate or exactly what it is, but it makes sense to me that there's a higher vibratory realm than the one we're aware of, and we live in what we call a 3-dimensional world, and perhaps we touch into a 4th dimensional aspect, and it would make sense when I hear him say song, and I hear mind energy or willed action. I put that together with, and I forget who it was that said that many people, or be aware that you don't die with your song inside of you, that you sing your song. And so to me, that would equate our original being and the expression of our purpose and what we're going to source, what our individual purpose is to source in the world, to me, would be our song. And that, to me, that fits perfectly. I think that would equate our essential created nature. That whatever that expression looks like is going to come out in many different frequency forms, and one of them would be song. That makes perfect sense to me.
Oh, that's lovely. Okay, good. Well, I told Tim Hayes this. I gave my little vestry presentation the other night, and it was my devotion at the beginning, and it went well. I did it from my mind because I didn't want to be reading notes, and I asked God to be with me when I said my words, and there was some discussion afterward, and the man who had the most immediate response was a former Roman Catholic who had loved his relationship with the whole Catholic Church. He was an altar boy. He lived very near there, so he used to clean up around the church. He was dedicated to the church until he read about the abuse by priests of young boys. And he had never experienced that, but it threw him for such a loop that he left the church and was just, had nowhere for a while. Now he's a member of our church, and what he brings to our church is amazing. But what he said is, I think about seeing the Christ in everyone too, seeing their innocence, their light, their goodness, their pure love, if I can see them that way. I do try to practice that. I'm not always very good at it, but it's my intention. But he said there is a story in the Bible that I know I wouldn't do if Jesus stood in front of me and said, give away everything you own
I wouldn't do it. First of all, if I did,
Right.
somebody else would have to take care of me. I'd be out in the street begging, and other people don't need that. Now, what do you have to say about that parable? Was that a true translation?
Well, you'll notice that one of the things that happened at the cross was that, and what normally would happen at a crucifixion is they take somebody's garment and tear it to pieces, and Charlie, you get a piece, Bill, get a piece, Harry, get a piece, Mary, everybody get a piece of it. It was kind of like, I guess, part of their pay. But they didn't do that with Yeshua's garment. Yeshua's garment was a one-piece garment, which meant it was very expensive. It was a sign of wealth. Now, I don't presume to think it was his wealth, but he had wealthy friends. And my take would be that he didn't tell everybody, go and sell everything you've got and follow me. Those whose hang-up was their stuff, he said, get rid of it, or you're in trouble. So he didn't have one prescription fits all.
That's wonderful.
And where someone's attachment, the thing that kept them locked out of being, was about their stuff, he said, you got to get rid of it.
Oh, okay.
That would be my take. That's how I would understand it.
That's very helpful. Because this man certainly doesn't care about his stuff, but he doesn't want to be a burden to anybody, and he just uses it as his platform so he can do his work. And most of us feel that way. In fact, that leads to another question. Tim and I, and we must have asked for this, and these are our teachers. Years ago, we joined an outfit called the Box Project in Connecticut. I'm sure I've told you about it before. The deal was that you would send a box of needed items to a family in a poor area of the country. We were assigned a family in Mississippi. The father and mother, you could tell they were not in good health. They had 2 little girls who, even as babies, were obese. And I know this isn't a matter of eating too much, and it may even not be poor nutrition at all. Yeah, it's that, but it's something else. I don't think, no matter what I ate, I could get that big. And
Mississippi, but remember, if it's been going on for generations, it's going to be different than someone who comes from a bloodline that has food. And I've done research in this, and Mississippi is one of the, first of all, one of the worst pay states in the nation. It's one of the highest rates of maternal mortality. It's one of the highest rates of infant mortality. It has the worst healthcare system in terms of healthcare deserts and food deserts. And if you live in a food desert, you don't have a car, and the only thing you've got is the 7-Eleven that sells nothing but sugar and caffeine and junk. Things end up pretty tragic. And sadly, 14 out of 15 states in the nation have those kind of statistics, and their minimum wage is $5.25 an hour to $7.25 an hour.
Yeah.
And so, starvation is the game, and if one is starving, then if there's no decent food around, they're going to eat, and nothing ever shuts off the appestat, and it's going to produce that kind of coming from that kind of poverty is going to produce that kind of physiological response. That would be my take, and it's definitely something that needs to be addressed. And unfortunately, if you look at the statistics, it's all red states that are doing that. There's policies in place by governments that lead to, that kind of tragedy. It boggles my mind that can be true, but if somebody does the research, that's where it's at.
Well, I didn't mean to focus just on that. It's one of the characteristics of this family. The father and mother both died very young. The mother died at age 47 or 8. She died as a passenger in a car. Her heart stopped. She was so large that her heart just gave out. And the father lived
Right.
for another 10 years, and he just died, and he was probably in his 60s, and he wasn't obese. But their house went to one of the daughters, and the other daughter has 2 children, probably by 2 fathers. The fathers aren't there. I know that's cultural. They're very devout, but that's just a cultural thing that the families don't stay intact. And what happened was we made this deal with the parents, and once a month we would send them whatever they needed, blankets, sheets, dishes, food, and it was a lot of work to keep up a package going out every month.
Right.
But when they died, I said to the daughters, I would like to be released from this obligation now. You're on your feet, you're doing okay, and it's been wonderful, and let's stay in touch, but I don't want to do the boxes anymore. And they said fine.
Right.
But gradually, they've been coming back, asking for things. And the mother, she has 2 children. She works as a pharmacist. She gets $12 an hour. She built her own house and has a mortgage of $89,000. She got sick, and they don't pay her when she's not working. So she lost the ability to pay some bills. So for the past 3 or 4 months, Tim and I have been covering her bills, and they haven't been a lot. And I said to her, we don't want to keep this up. I'm careful about my language. I don't say we can't because we could. I don't want
Right.
to do this. And
Yep, I hear that.
So I called my daughter, who's got a lot of connections with housing efforts, because she's the dean of the cathedral in Jacksonville. The cathedral actually just created a huge housing complex for homeless, but it's mixed, so it's not like a ghetto. Anybody can live in there. And I called her and I said, could you help us with Michael? And also, I've got this other issue now. And she said, there are scholarships available. And Tim has been put as trustee of something called the MC Scholarship. And he's given our kids the capacity to decide from year to year where this scholarship goes. It goes to different institutions that they like, provides scholarships for kids. And my daughter said, what about the MC Scholarship? Why don't Jonathan and I give the kids, have them get into a technical school? The kids are 21 and 16. Get them into technical school on these scholarships. If they can get in, we'll pay the tuition and get them. It's like teaching a person to fish, that whole thing.
Right.
Of course.
Right, exactly.
That's a long-term. Jonathan hasn't agreed yet. I haven't heard. Catherine's very happy to do that. I would love to suggest that to them, because I think they're going to feel abandoned if we don't help somehow. But meanwhile, they have no food. They don't even have food at this point. So we're sending them grocery money, but it's not enough to cover the mortgage. She says she's going to lose the house. My question is, I know that's too many details. Here's Michael, and here's this family down south. Tim and I are in this, and we got ourselves into this, and we have to take responsibility for this. What the heck are we doing? And yet it's like the guy who has his stuff. We've got stuff. We should be sharing it. So I'm going back and forth as what is the right thing to do here? How can we really help? And we've been vigorously looking for housing for Michael, and things aren't panning out. It's really hard when he has so little. Anyway, I don't know what my question is. How did I get into this is my question. It's my responsibility. Something happened. Okay, I'll stop talking.
Well, what I hear is you're in process around what's going on in the world around you in terms of poverty and suffering, and it sounds like you're perhaps at a point of some confusion.
Mm-hmm.
And, that's a sign of the healing process. That's one of the symptoms of healing. And I know that you're doing your work on an ongoing basis, so you're probably processing through some layers, some parts of your own mind that you need to get clarity on. And I suspect when you complete that, you'll just have simple, total clarity on what your choices are going to be in both of those arenas.
That's good. Tim Hayes has been reading Way of Mastery, and always and always and always we are to take responsibility for our choices and how we feel about things. Watch the feelings, because the feelings will tell you the truth about a situation. And in both cases, I
Not necessarily.
go right into, okay, speak.
Not necessarily. Your feelings, or I assume you're talking about your emotions. Your emotions will tell you about the mind energy with which you're creating your life.
Uh-huh.
They won't necessarily tell you about actuality, and therefore what's right or not right. But they'll accurately show you what your thoughts are, or the quality of your thoughts relative to your creative process. And if you find those emotions are based in some form of hostility or fear, then back to the drawing board. What do I need to forgive in order to free myself of that and get back on track with love?
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's what's happening. That tightening in the chest, that goal that's
next layer of healing.
There is, you should do this, you should do that. You've got to help yourself. You've got to grab hold. Don't depend on other people. All these things are going on. Meanwhile, I'm saying, breathe, has to be shown, breathe, has to be shown. It's very messy, Michael.
Well, there's an old saying that says, to a simple mind, the truth is simple. To a complex mind, the truth is complex. If the truth is messy, then the mind is probably messy, and there's a little work to be done.
Oh, yeah. Right, okay.
And perhaps one of those pieces of work, I hear the hesitancy around proclaiming that you're complete with your obligation there, perhaps some work around over-responsibility for what's going on in the world.
How could you have over-responsibility considering what's going on in the world?
Well, you could be trying to take responsibility for something that is not your responsibility.
I had a friend once who used to do theater lighting for me when we were touring around, and he did it for free for me. He taught at Yale Repertory Theater, but he was a lighting professor there, teaching students how to do the lighting. He was a member of our parish, and he saw that I was touring around these little children's operas and chancel operas, and he said, "Let me help." And he never charged a penny. And I said, "How do you do this? How do you know who to give to?" And it isn't even as if I asked him. I was going to hire him. But he said, when a person crosses my path and they ask for something, I give it. What an amazing man. But sort of that was the way he operated. And I guess I've thought I should do the same. Both these people came to us. We didn't look for them.
Right. So if your sense of obligation comes with some sort of resistance, I'd suggest there's some work to be done there.
There sure is, Michael. Yeah.
And that work I would offer is working through over-responsibility.
Okay.
The fact is that I think that the latest numbers say something like 60% of Americans today, if they had a $300 emergency, could not meet that emergency.
That's it.
Of course, wouldn't we all like to alleviate that? But if I said, well, I have to alleviate that for 60% of Americans, that's about 180 million people, I'd be stepping into some over-responsibility.
Yeah. Well, the difference there is you couldn't do it either.
That's right.
And Tim and I can do this.
And it sounds like some part of you says you're finished with that.
And that's not a healthy part, I don't think.
Guilt? Is it guilt that pulls you back in?
Yeah, sense of responsibility, guilt, the fact that if everybody were able in some way to help, we would have a lot less starvation and illness and so forth. And,
absolutely. I'm with you 100%.
Well, there is a lot to do, and I don't need to keep the whole radio show. I mean, yes, I do. I always do. But I hear you. Over responsibility.
Maybe a couple of worksheets to just see what that shows you. See if it brings something up that's worth processing through.
Okay, done a lot, but maybe I haven't done it with the right wording or something. Need to do some more.
Well, we'll be holding the space.
Thanks.
All right. Any other thoughts for you today?
No, that's good. Thanks a lot, Michael.
All right. We appreciate you. Lots of love. Blessings.
Thanks.
We do have another hand, but
Jeanie?
let's answer the question from the app, and then we'll go to the next one.
Right. Okay.
Okay. So a gentleman named David asks or says, I offended my girlfriend, and she is annoyed with me, and she doesn't want to listen to me. So what should I do to gain her love back?
Well, David, my offering would be that there is a mountain of communication within that simple sentence. And, when I started the show out talking about language and the language that we've been brainwashed into and the way we've been taught to believe, that's so far out of harmony with the truth. So I can see about probably at least 6 issues in your statement. First of all, the belief that you've offended somebody is false. No one in the world can be offended unless their mind holds a structure, a perceptual structure called offense. And if their mind holds a perceptual structure called offense, then you or I or anybody who happens to say a word that violates the goals that they hold, that person's going to have a construct in their mind called offense come up. So my offering would be, first of all, you've never offended her. And then you say that she is annoyed with you. Well, I'd offer she's not annoyed with you, but she has annoyance, and you happen to be the person today that brings it up. I bet we could, have a conversation with her. We'd find that last week it was somebody else, and the week before, and the month before, and 6 months ago, and 2 years ago, and 20 years ago. She had somebody who offended her and someone who annoyed her. So the first order of business would be, for you, I would offer to look at places where you've been offended, places where you've been annoyed, and perhaps apply the forgiveness worksheet and work through some of that. As you work through it, you'll tend to change the energy in the interaction with her, and you might find that she'll start to own. If you clean that energy up in you, then she'll perhaps start to own the parts of her that are experiencing offense and the parts of her that are projecting annoyance on you. And you may find that that disappears from your relationship, and your relationship strengthens as a result. But as long as you believe that you've offended and you buy into that you're the cause of her annoyance, that's going to be a tough thing to work through. So I'd say some worksheets in those two arenas for you. And then she doesn't want to listen to me. When you follow that up with, and so what should I do to gain back her love? What I hear is that her not listening to you equates to she doesn't love you. And again, you know, there's a whole language shift that needs to occur because, well, she's never loved you, or doesn't you say she doesn't love you? You don't love her, and you never have, and you never will, and she never has, and she never will, because love isn't something we do. Love is something that we are, and we can't take that experience away from each other. So when I come back to the experience of myself as love, I have a whole different interaction with the people around me. Now, you don't give us much information about the nature of offense that came up for her or what the behavior was. I assume it was something you said to her by the fact that you say she doesn't want to listen, and then that you equate her not wanting to listen to you as a loss of her love. My suggestion would be that you strive to forgive from yourself anything that has to do with being rejected, and as you come into the experience of yourself as love, you're not going to be reliant on someone else approving of you, or whatever it is that you say, seeing as how you're saying she doesn't listen to you, but you'll simply experience yourself as the presence of love. And when you do, the tendency will be, if you show up in that conflicted situation as conscious, active, present love, then the offense and annoyance in her, in the presence of your conscious, active, present love, you're standing there as the space of conscious, active, present love, will tend to begin to dissolve that offense and annoyance in her. Doing so will also tend to soften your language, which will probably make it easier for her to listen to you. And as you return to the state of active love, energetically that will tend to create a space which energetically invites her to show up as active, present love, and all of a sudden things that were a big issue yesterday will tend to disappear. Without more details, or, you know, if you're on the show now, it'd be awesome if you push 1, or if you're listening on one of those stations where we can't see you, if you call into the show, the number is 563-999-3581. If you call that number, push 1, let's have a conversation and get some more refinements. You know, it's a pretty limited statement that you've made in terms of me supporting you. But if we could have a conversation, we could perhaps expand that support and get more specific. So hold the space that if you're listening, that you'll dial into the show, or you're already on the show, push 1. That'll put a hand up in the control panel, and Jeanie will know that you want to talk to us. Again, the call-in number, if you're on a station where we can't see you, is 563-999-3581. So, Miss Jeanie, if there's no hand that goes up immediately, do you have any other thoughts to offer, David?
No, you hit it really well. And I'm sending him the link to listen to the show. So, but we do have a hand up, but it's not him.
Cool. Let's say hello.
It is Miss Linda, 541. You're on the air.
Good morning. Oh, it's afternoon.
Good morning. Welcome, young lady.
Well, I just had some thoughts about what Susan shared with, and she talked about this gentleman who talked about the fifth dimension and the song of the fifth dimension. And it reminds me, I read a book by Neil Douglas Klopp, and in it he talks about, for thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, right, in the Lord's Prayer. And he said his perception, his understanding of that was the kingdom, or what I would call the kingdom queendom, is the reigning vision of the Creator. And it's the I can of the cosmos. Reawakening that within me, that I'm already in the kingdom queendom. I don't have to go running off looking for it. That the power was the life energy of the cosmos. And this is the part that I was thinking of for Susan, that the reigning principles are the song of the cosmos. And it's interesting that, and I thought that was a particularly beautiful way of presenting it, the song of the cosmos. And I was thinking about the chakra system, and the fifth chakra is the will, the throat area. And so I was thinking, in fact, the Eastern traditions who rely on the chakra system as part of their truth say that there are probably 7 dimensions or more. We have no clue, but I thought that was, I just thought I'd share that with you.
Okay. Very cool.
And then when she was talking about her responsibility for all the poverty in the world, I was so grateful.
It sounds, Celinda, it sounds like you're moving around a lot, and your voice is coming in and out, and we're losing some of your words. If you could be a little steadier on the microphone, we'd be able to keep up with you easier.
Okay, cool. And I realized I was so grateful that
your voice is almost gone now.
Wait a minute. That's why, Michael. I had the volume down, didn't realize it. Okay, is this any better?
Seems to be.
Oh, good. I was just saying that I'm so thankful that I spent the years I did in the 12-step programs, because one of the expressions that I really learned about was over-responsibility, and the result of over-responsibility, which was just as unhealthful as irresponsibility. And there was an expression they had on a little bookmark, and the expressions were neither condoning nor condemning, neither enabling or enforcing, neither interceding nor interfering. And that was especially helpful for me. I'm still sorting through which side I'm tending to be on, judgment or enabling. And so I thought I'd share that if that's helpful at all.
All right, young lady. Thank you.
You're so welcome.
All right. Hope your days are blessed.
And yours as well.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye. Well, Miss Jeanie, we're down to about 7 or 8 minutes. Do we have anybody else in the chat room or anything else happening in the phone queue?
No, it's all quiet here. Several people listening, but no their hands up. So we have time for a quick question. Press 1.
So if you're out there in listener land, what's on your mind? How can we support you? Call-in number is 563-999-3581. And if you dial that number, that'll put you in queue. And if you have a question or a thought for us, then we'll have a conversation. Otherwise, I was listening to a video this morning that I found to be quite interesting. And it was a medical doctor, William W. Lee, L.I., who is a cancer researcher. And so much of what he had to say just took me right back to our food program at Heartland. And that when people would come to Heartland, we'd do a total fresh and raw program. And this gentleman is a high-level researcher in the arena of cancer, and he is the strongest voice yet I've heard of. Let medicine, Hippocrates, let your food be your medicine and medicine be your food. And as a cancer researcher, what he's done and what he spoke about, if you look up, let's see if I've got the title of his YouTube video. It was really worth listening to. Starving Cancer, the title of it, Starving Cancer, a surprising treatment to reverse aging and prevent disease. Dr. William Lee, really excellent. And this is a guy who works in the laboratory, and what he's done when he started to look at, the fact that drugs just were treatment, that they really weren't about healing, he started to run the same kinds of experiments on foods that he'd run on drugs in terms of cancer. And he's identified many foods that are far more powerful than any of the cancer treatments, the chemical, drug treatments that they've got. He was like right straight up front. I put this in a petri dish with cancer cells, and this did better than our best drug. And it's food, and it doesn't create side effects. And when I look at, over the years, what have we got, 37, 38 years of doing intensives, where when people come and do an intensive, when they arrive at Heartland, they've seen the last, for the time period that they're at Heartland, the last of the sugar, the last of the caffeine, the last of the partial foods, the last of cooked foods. They'll see everything that they'll be served will be properly combined, fresh and raw food ingredients, as many organic as we can possibly get. And his whole talk was like, this is where healing happens. It's not about treatment, it's about healing. And so I just invite everybody to tune into that YouTube video. It's got a picture of him on it, and the quote on the video portion of it is, "This food repairs your DNA." Again, Dr. William Lee, Starving Cancer, a surprising treatment to reverse aging and prevent disease. Strongest voice I've ever seen. He could be a naturopathic friend, the way that he's coming at this food thing, and he's doing it right straight out of the experimental laboratory and showing, here's a cancer cell, here's what our drug does to it, boom, here's what ellagic acid from strawberries do to it, bingo, angiogenesis, and it's anti-angiogenesis, and cancer can't grow without a blood supply. I mean, it's just a really powerful presentation that he does, and I haven't gone beyond that. I just accidentally came across it, and it looked interesting. But he sounds like he's pretty much in a similar arena to ours. He says, come to my YouTube channel, watch. I'm out there to put it out as far and as wide as I can. So I plan to spend more time listening to what he has to say as someone who's been in the laboratory and, has a verification for what we've known for years. We've watched people, the average person over the years who comes to Heartland and does a 9-day intensive, takes off anywhere from 10 to 20 pounds. They sleep better. The effects are just monumental and an important part of the healing process. If you're doing the forgiveness work, if you're doing worksheets, I'm going to invite you to look at what you're doing with your food program. And if you're not doing something about food, then I invite you to start. We do have the book available in our catalog called Recipes which is really a transcription of just so many of Chef Ari's recipes over the years. Bless Ari's heart that he's gone. But, I'd invite you to do that. And we do have a private Facebook page and a recipe book that puts a whole 14-week program together of 3 meals a day of fresh and raw food. Not that you have to do that, but to at least move in the direction of doing something that is more food-friendly, where you're actually eating food rather than the garbage of the culture. He makes a point that the energetic patterns in the in commercial farming and the difference that they make in the lab with diseases and organic food is monumental, night and day. Just so much verification across the board. So I'll just leave that thought with you. Hope it serves, and hope we have served you today. And we hope that you have the best year yet of your eternal life. It's an awesome gift to give the world. Bless.